Hi, this is Donna. Welcome to DD Paper Crafts, and in today's video we're going to be making this sweet little gift bag. This comes from several photographs of this style which were on Pinterest, and then I've just made up my own sizes. And the flap opens up, this opens down, and this is your section to add your gifts inside. You can obviously adapt this to any size that you require for your gifts. And as we go along cutting the pieces, I will just run through what you need to bear in mind when cutting your pieces if you decide to make a different size. So let's get started. For the front flap, back panel and base, it's one piece of cardstock, and for a bag the same size as mine, it's 11 inches long and 6 inches wide. And I apologise for the glare on the light while I'm using this cardstock. This is Hunky Dory 300 GSM Adorable Scoreable. So I'm not actually going to be matting and layering this. I'm going to use this cardstock as it is. We're going to score at 3 inches, 3.5 inches and 8.5 inches. And then fold and burnish along the score lines. Now, you may at this stage want to consider the type of handle you're going to have. If, for instance, you're going to have eyelets, you may want to add those in now whilst the piece is flat, rather than after the bag's constructed. But you'll be able to see as we go along at which stage you think you might need to add the eyelets, for example, if that's what you're having. I'm going to use brads for my ribbon because I don't have gold eyelets. I am therefore going to be able to make my holes at the end. So just bear that in mind. We're now going to cut the front flap for the bag. And if I just show you on the mock-up that I made, this is this piece here. So this piece here remains fixed, and then this flap comes over the top. I've made my flap the width of the bag plus 1/2 inch at either end, and it's 2 inches high plus a 1/2 inch glue tab. So my starting piece is 7 inches by 2.5 inches, and you can adjust that piece for the width of your bag if you're making a bag that's wider. In addition, if you want to have a taller flap, then just change up the size of this piece that we're going to put together now. It's not going to change the construction of the bag by any means if you decide that you would like a higher flap. So my piece is 7 inches wide by 2.5. Along the 7-inch side, score at 1/2 and 6.5, and along the 2-inch side, score at 2. Fold and burnish. Take your scissors, and we're just going to create our glue tabs. With the long side in front of you, remove the bottom corners where the score lines intersect, like so, and then just cut a wedge into what will be the side and the left hand end of the bottom glue tab, and repeat on the other side. So that's our front flap. Take your bag piece and you'll have your front flap, your top, the back and the bottom, and we're going to attach the front flap to the base of the bag. I'm going to use red liner tape purely because this card has got a shine to it, and I think that it's going to adhere better if I use tape rather than glue. Remove the backing, and I'm going to line. I'm going to do it this way, turn it over it because it's easier. I'm going to line the end up with the score line. Just make sure you don't go over the score line. Just check that's not on going straight. I've got time to pull this. If I bend over the score line, I can just make sure that I get that lined up. Fold that over. That's nice. So that's our 2 bits. I'm going to now add in readiness my tape. So that's our front flap, our base and our front piece, which is our support for the gifts. We're now going to make the side panels, and if you're making a bag the same size as mine, you'll need 2 pieces which are 5½ inches by 3 inches. If you're making a bag a different size, your side panels are going to be the height of the bag times the width of the base, and on the height you need to add a 1/2 inch glue tab. If you're using card which is the same both sides, you can follow the process I'm going to show you on this piece for both pieces. If you're using printed card, then we want to change the measurements slightly to make sure that we get a left hand and a right hand side of the bag with the card, the printed side, on the outside. Along the 5½ inch side, we want to score at 1/2 inch, and that's giving us our 1/2 inch glue tab. Along the 3 inch side, we want to score at 1/2 inch. So that's our side and our base glue tab. Now take a pencil or your stylus, and you want to make a pencil mark or a small notch at 1 inches along the 3 inch side. And I'm just going to flip this over so I can show you. We're now going to cut from the notch that we've just made diagonally down to the end of the 1/2 inch score line. I'm going to use my trimmer, and I'm just going to place my notch in the groove. Do the same with the end of the score line. If you're more comfortable, then use scissors or use whatever your preferred method is for this. And then so this is the left-hand side of the bag. So again, if you've got plain cardstock, you can do that process twice. If you're using cards similar to mine, we now need to create the right-hand side of the bag. Along the 5½ inch side, score at 5. Along the 3 inch side, score at 2½. Make your pencil mark or your notch at 2 inches. And again, we're now going to cut from the notch mark down to the bottom outside edge here. I now have my left and my right hand sides for the bag. Fold and burnish the score lines. Cut away the intersecting corner like so. Cut a wedge into the end of the glue tab. Fold up the glue tab and just trim off the excess along the diagonal like so. And then cut your wedges into the side glue tab. Okay, so that's our left and our right pieces. I'm going to add my red liner tape. Take your bag section, make sure you've got your added flap over to the right. I'm going to remove the tape from the long sides, and then I'm folding my tab under because I'm using this red liner tape. I just find it easier to then line up the top and the base of the bag, and I'm lining up the edge of my side panel with my side of my bag. Push my piece down. I'm going to do the other side. I'm going to remove the tape, pull up the side, pull up the base, and adhere those into place. Like so. So we now have our side panels in. Now we're going to stick the front flap in place. I'm going to remove my tape, but obviously if you're not using tape, add your glue to your tabs and pull up the front panel and get the edge of the side, the edge of the front flap, and glue that into place. And I just need to actually trim the angle on this glue tab. So I'm just going to trim that. So there is the bare bones of our bag. And for the final piece, for a bag my size, I've got a piece which is 7¼ by 6, and along the 7¼ side score at 4¾ fold and burnish along the score line. This section here is going to have glue inside, and this piece is now going to stick underneath, which is going to strengthen the base. What I would recommend, because we've got score lines moving around 2 pieces of cardstock added together, add your adhesive to the inside of the base, then lay your front flat panel on the top in the right position, ensuring that your score line wraps around the front edge, and then push your bottom flap piece here down into place on the base. So I am actually going to use tape, and I have got an additional score line here, and that's because to start with I scored it in the wrong place and I've then burnished it away, but you can still see it on the inside. And this unfortunately is my last piece of card of this type, so I didn't have the opportunity to cut a new piece. You will use whichever adhesive. My scissors are starting to glue together now because of the red liner tape. And what this extra piece does, this might seem a bit excessive covering the whole base again, but what it does is it does add some additional strength to the base of the bag. And again, you can create the front flap to whatever height you prefer. If you don't like it, you can adjust the height of the front flap to suit your preference. So if you don't like it coming that high up, or you want it to come right up to the top, you can obviously adjust the size of the piece. So I'm going to line my score line up with the front edge and just make sure that's sitting squarely. So that's essentially our bag complete. I'm going to add the finishing touches onto mine, and I will then come back and show you once it's finished. Here's the finished decorated bag. I've added a simple ribbon and brad handle on the top. For the front closure, I've added some discs of cardstock together, adhered those on with a brad, and added some gold thread around the back, and then the thread just loops around like so to create the closure mechanism. And I just felt this was a change to the normal hook and loop closure that I use. On the inside, I did cover the brads with a strip, and I did cover the brads on the front flaps with a white strip, and I also went down the front edge here of the side panel with a gold marker pen, just because when the flap was up I didn't like the look of the white card. And it's a really sweet little bag, and it also has meant that I've had the opportunity to use cardstock which I possibly wouldn't have used for anything else. So I'm quite pleased with how this one's come out. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel, and until next time, thanks for watching.